Angels, in the way of the heavenly host, come from a number of different cultures around the world, and yet within the reality of the Ragnarök Chronicles, to say that angels are unearthly has another completely different meaning. Hello and welcome to the Ragnarök Chronicles. My name is Dominic and this is a channel where I just talk you through some elements of the books that I am writing. As you could tell from both the title and the intro there, we're going to be talking about angels. Now, there's a reason why, while in a number of cases a lot of mythological names and links are distorted from what they really are within the books to what we have come to know them as in mythology, is why that may be the case in most cases, but here the word angel has carried forward. But to get to that explanation, we need to start a bit earlier, to before everything. I've mentioned in a previous video that part of the multiverse is the beta realm, which is this last remnant of some reality that came before our current iteration of it, before what we would consider the Big Bang. Angels were among the species that lived in that previous reality. Now, the end that reality met was not a natural one. It was induced, and certain races knew this. They knew that something like this was coming, and they knew that there was nothing they could do to stop it. The best they could do was plan to survive. You ended up with 3 factions of angels, who, to be clear, while maybe being somewhat humanoid, vaguely, they still have multiple sets of wings, depending on the exact subspecies, but also you're looking at something which is predominantly a mixture of gold and black in natural colour scheme, and can be anywhere up to 10 feet tall. The first of these factions are the ones that ended up being in the beta realm. They were the ones who literally just fled to the furthest corners of the universe in some hope that turned out to work to escape the blast of the Big Bang. Unfortunately, once within the beta realm, once they had realised after enough time that they had indeed survived, you'd got to a point in history where soon afterwards the walls of reality around the beta realm were sealed more thoroughly, making it even harder for anything to enter or exit. They were essentially now trapped in a smaller fragment of the reality they'd come from before. Now, given the enormity of space, that's still plenty of reality to be working within. They can still take a planet and live upon it. Yet even so, there is a sense of a need to want to escape. And this, to an extent, came in the form of a wormhole. A wormhole that was behaving quite erratically, kind of appearing here and there, which they managed to latch onto and a small group managed to go through before it disappeared again. This group ended up, along with a number of other random assortment of aliens from across the multiverse, on some islands, which, as it would happen, would be somewhere on Earth. Although the aliens didn't know exactly where they were, and nor would the majority of the people on planet Earth know that they were there in turn. Once again, having somewhat traded one location for an even smaller one, they, ever since, have been trying to find a way to re-establish contact through this dormant wormhole with the others of their faction that are still in the beta realm. The second of the factions sought after those who would actually be causing the end of that previous reality that would be instigating the Big Bang. This confrontation ended up on a ship that would subsequently, in our version of reality, be referred to as the Legacy. These angels got aboard the Legacy just as the Big Bang was happening. Now, in this way, they did manage to survive the initial brunt of the blast of the Big Bang, as in being upon this ship that was designed to carry its builders through to the other side. Once aboard, they not only were satisfied with having survived, to take some form of vengeance for the loss of their reality, they forced the current crew of that ship off into the kind of cosmic maelstrom that was happening outside, not really knowing or caring what happened to them subsequently. However, as they then continued to ride out the energy coming out of the Big Bang, since they didn't actually know how to operate this ship, they altered things enough that they were no longer properly protected, and part of the energy emitting from the device or the machine creating the Big Bang essentially irradiated them inside, and they died anyway. Now, the last of these factions, they are the reason why we still know of angels in the first place and still stick to them by their actual name. These angels found a way to convert themselves into a more astral form, which did manage to survive the alterations to reality. They had no idea what they were finding on the other side. They didn't really know what this process would do to them. But if they weren't part of the material universe, then in theory, in their minds, they wouldn't be lost with all of that material stuff. As it happened, after this new form of the multiverse had subsequently settled, these astral forms ended up being caught up in what the closest other equivalent of an astral plane was at that time. And those were the simulations for souls in the Knellosseum silent satellites, which I kind of talked about in a previous video. So these satellite structures that are used to house souls between reincarnations. Essentially, after a given person has died, their soul goes into this kind of simulation which continues existing until there is a new body for them to go into. As was the case with the first faction of angels, these angels were stuck within the simulation. They could kind of move around a little bit in this kind of quasi state of existence, but they weren't real in the same way that they used to be. They couldn't return then to the material plane immediately. So instead, all they've been able to do is to continue to interact not only with human souls or passing through the satellites, but any and all souls passing through them. And as such, while people don't tend to remember either any of their previous lives or anything that they experienced in the simulation, because they were something slightly different to what was intended to be in the simulation, memories and ideas of these angels would sometimes carry forward into those new lives. They would have kind of these vague recollections of something that would go on in cultural knowledge to reform into what we now think of, as I say, as angels. Will something happen to those that are stuck in the silent satellites? Will they ever be able to escape? Only time will tell. Until then, I hope you've found this interpretation of angels within the Ragnarök Chronicles interesting, as I do hope you will find any subsequent videos interesting as well. And until then, until I see you again, just keep on telling stories.